Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Three-Man Weave College Basketball Podcast. It is preview season. We're here to pour one out for the Pac-12. This is the final Pac-12 preview we will ever do. Realignment has taken a wrecking ball to the foundation of the league. They're gone. It's gone. But we're going to talk about it anyways. We're going to get into all the teams, deep, all 12. Of course, we'll get a little Roots roundup and stuff first, but it's the Pac-12 preview. I'm Jim Root. I'm hosting this week, joined by Kai McEwen and Matthew Cox with his old school headphones. I never understand Matt's headphone choice, Kai. Can you explain that to me?
He's an old school man. He likes to kick it old school. He has several different types of headphones, and just depending on his mood, he chooses to roll with one or the other.
Okay, that makes sense. Matt, your rebuttal?
Yeah, my response is not a sponsor of this podcast. Our AirPods, which stink, and I don't like them. They don't work half the time. So here they are. I'm going to throw them in the trash after.
I agree.
Hey, happy Almanac Day to those who celebrate, which, well, we have no choice but to celebrate. We're obliged to celebrate, and we're excited to celebrate. V2.
Exciting. Yes, the Almanac is live. It's good. I like it.
It's good. Kai with the overwhelming endorsement.
I tell you what,
is good.
Tepid excitement from our.
I tell you what, the website format makes you realize how much content is packed into it, because the PDF, obviously it's like 800 pages last year was PDF, which is like, whoa, a lot. But this website format's like, I mean, I'll never get through this, basically, reading all the stuff on here.
Yeah, just clicking around. It's very easy navigable too. Drop down menus for every conference. You click over into specific team previews. If you're on Arkansas State, but you want to quickly get to Arkansas, boom, easy. Up the top, SEC drop down, scroll to Arkansas. It takes no time at all. Definite improvement there over last year. We've also added jersey numbers. So as you're watching games this year, you're going to know who's running around out there. A couple incomplete rosters out there, but I would say at least 300 of the rosters have all jerseys on there. So that's going to be a helpful aid as you watch hoops this year. We're very excited about the Almanac. It looks great. It's out. It happened. It was a race to the finish as always, but guys, we got it out into the people's hands, and it seems like pretty solid reception so far.
Yeah, good feedback so far.
And tell us what you don't like about it, so we'll include that for next year. Glad we did the website for this season specifically with all like the late waiver decisions. Allow us to go in and at least add some notes for those matter. Obviously, there's no rosters. Won't be final like at any point this year until I guess like mid-November. So it's nice that we have that ability to update. But there will be no Chad Ford retroactive standing swaps. We're not that cheeky, so don't look for that from us. We're above that.
Yeah, just maybe some individual swaps. But for instance, in the American, I have noted that I don't even think I noted in there, but if DeAndre Williams is eligible, gets his 8th year, whatever it is, as age 27, he's going to be the player of the year. But as of now, we haven't given it to someone else. Just got to wait and see in that regard. All right, fellas, let's get into the pod a little bit here. This is episode 321, talking Pac-12 preview, heading into the 2023-24 season. We'll start with a little bit of reviews, the intro, then, of course, Roots Roundup, a little bit of news and notes to get to, and then the dive into the Pac-12. Should be minute marks in the episode description if you want to hop around and find a specific team. Feel free to do that as well. All right, shout out to Jay Pitty, the composer of our tunes. I'm now about 3 weeks out from a Vegas trip with Mr. Paskov to see the Packers. Excited about that. Gonna stay at Caesars, Matthew. I don't think I've stayed there in quite a long time.
Wow. Here, good for you. Not at the Nobu within the Caesars, the hotel within the hotel. I've always been confused by that.
All Nobu seats are reserved for you, Mr. Matthew, right. the Nobu expert of this group. Subscribe to the pod on iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever the heck you listen to your pods. But if you want to leave a review, that's especially helpful on iTunes in the podcast app. That's where we pull these reviews from. And Kai, we have 0 this week. Womp, womp, womp.
Yeah, 0 reviews, Jim. Oh, well. Hey, leave us reviews on iTunes if you would. 5-star would be great. We'll read them on the show, ask questions, do anything you want. It's a free country, Jim.
Hey, leave Almanac reviews.
Mailbag.
Actually, no, don't, because if they're bad reviews, I don't want that to hurt our podcast.
If they're good reviews,
if they're
good reviews, leave them. If they're bad reviews, keep your opinion to yourself.
All right,
no, send them via DM so no one else can see any negative feedback. We want that private. Keep that off the public channels there. But yes, buy the Almanac. It is out $19.99 per login. You get 362 teams, at least 1,300 words on each, a ton of national content, top 25 mid-majors, top 25 transfers to watch, breakout players to watch, top 20 backcourts, top 20 front courts, top 100 players, all of our picks for Final Four and title. It's all in there. A ton of stuff. The Weave wrote a little gambling piece. Kai and I talked about some side splits that I think are worth noting. Go check out when you want to bet on Harvard and when you want to fade them. It's pretty obvious. Kai did some work on totals as well. That's going to be in there. Teams that are really good in over squads or under in recent history. Also worth checking out. So get the almanac, dig into everything. It is going to, you'll feel like Kai said, you got thrown into the deep end and you're not going to have time to process all of that content. All right, that's it. Let's get into Roots Roundup. Talking news and notes here, fellas, around the sport. Not a ton of key headlines. Great. Finally, nothing realignment bothering us and forcing us to talk about it today. In coaching news, though, we got to shout out Mr. Juwan Howard, had a heart procedure. It sounds like he is going to be completely fine. The reports are he'll be recovered and coaching the season. But anytime you have something happen to your heart, we want to make sure to give some well wishes and wish him a speedy recovery. Right, Matthias? I'll say that to you as the non-Mizzou person.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, this is a universally support situation. Get well, Juwan. I know that Phil Martelli is taking over the reins while he is out, while he has been out, which is, they've done that before. Martelli was a pretty big fixture when I think Howard was it 2 years ago when Martelli took over for that little stretch. Anyway, I think Michigan's in good shape, and I hope Juwan a speedy recovery. That's my emphatic take.
Absolutely. Well said. I believe the Weave is a little higher on Michigan than most. Matthew and Kai,
we are
high votes in our top 40. So we are very pro Michigan this year, seemingly heading into the season. All right, recruiting news. Couple of ones to shout out here. 5-star shooting guard Jaleel Bethea is announcing today, I believe in 52 minutes as we record this. All signs point to Miami. Kai, top 10 recruit, shooting guard, shot maker, scorer. Your next Isaiah Wong, your next Luka Poplar, your next Nigel Pack. Is Jim Larinaga is never retiring? Why would he?
Yeah, he keeps bringing in high-level talent, so maybe he shouldn't, Jim. And he's a great coach and a great dude, so happy for him. Miami doesn't need any more wins as a program, though, to be frank. 2 straight Elite Eights or whatever it is, it's fine. You guys are done. Final Four, right? Final Four.
Yeah. They had that injury-wrecked couple of years, and they have bounced back in a very big way.
That's true.
Under Mr. Larinaga. A couple of ACC schools getting 4-star recruits here. Combo guard Jaden Mustaf to Georgia Tech. I just continue to think Damon Stoudemire is going to be awesome in Atlanta. Going to be a maybe not a super quick build, not going to be dominant this year, but that team is going to be sustainably great with Stoudemire in charge. And then Virginia, speaking of sustainably great, Tony Bennett brings in top 100 power forward Jacob Kofi. So continuing his very good run on the recruiting trail of the last couple of seasons, top 100 guys galore on that roster. I know Virginia fans are very hyped about the rising talent level. And we know what he did when he had a couple top 100 recruits age all the way into being juniors and seniors. He won a national title. So Tony Bennett, well done on the recruiting trail. Transfers. Hey, Will McNair's headed to K-State, the last straggler. That's what you get. You want to get mentioned on this pod as a bit rotation player. You delay your decision all the way until mid-December. September. Will McNair going to give them some post depth there in the Little Apple. And in waiver decisions, Joe Bamisil sitting out Kai VCU. He's forced to sit out. He's a third time transfer. This would have been his 4th school.
Yeah.
Case made that he was going home to see a sick father, and he had left a previous school due to some mental health stuff. It just seems like it's going to be extremely difficult to clear the bar that the NCAA is asking for 2-time waivers.
Very difficult, and VCU is in a little bit of trouble. Ryan Odom's team is thin. An injury could spell doom for the Rams. They don't have a lot of scholarship players. I think only 10 right now, excluding Bamisil.
Yeah, there's a couple teams out there that are kind of thin on scholarship players. I'm looking at you, Georgetown, Kansas, I believe only has 10. So yeah, you don't want to risk messing with injuries when you're not filling out the full roster. If you stay healthy, it's great because then you don't have the personality clashes because everybody's playing, but there is some inherent risk to that roster building approach. No question. The injuries and suspension news, Xavier coming up again with their front court. Zach Fremantle potentially done for the year, at least out for quite a while. You couple that with Jerome Hunter, also on a TBD timeline for an injury. The front court, Matthew, is looking a little bit dicey, and it's a mid-major Conference USA backcourt. We know that they succeeded with Sule Boom last year, but the range of outcomes is kind of narrowing for Xavier, at least on the top end to me.
Yeah, if you didn't have Sean Miller at the helm and you didn't have the success you had with Sule Boom last year, you could make a real case that this would be a cellar dweller type outlook for Xavier. I think Jerome Hunter's a bigger loss than Fremantle. That's a whole other conversation that I want to have right now on this podcast as Kai laughs at my face.
Yeah, we'll save that for the Big East preview. It's I think ridiculous statement, but whatever.
He averaged literally twice as many points, rebounds,
I love counting
steals.
Stats. I remember
he averaged twice as many as all of us.
Everyone Kai's like, oh, Colorado State lost Nico Carvacho. He averaged a double-double. It's like, who cares? Guys have run better.
Weren't they bad?
How about here's my
without
case,
Fremantle
Matt.
last year. I don't need Fremantle.
Why is Jerome Hunter playing so much less than Fremantle if you worship Sean Miller's coaching?
He was also hurt a little bit last year, and I think he really came on late and became a fixture in that he's a better two-way player than Fremantle. A little more
he came on late because
more,
Fremantle was hurt.
And they were awesome. That's my point.
Hold on. They were way better with Fremantle than without him.
Yes, they were.
They were
last year?
Yes.
Okay. I feel like they're just awesome the whole year, regardless of who played, honestly. Which is, again, excellent. Good coaching.
Yeah.
Good coaching.
It's very good coaching. All right. We'll argue about
they went 15
Xavier at a later date.
An awesome league without him.
Matt, they beat UConn twice with Fremantle. So I think that's a pretty decent argument for it.
Swept UConn. They lost 3 games in the Big East without him, 2 with him.
Yeah. Fremantle was awful in that second game. I remember. Actually, Hunter got most of his minutes. I remember. Anyway, I'm done.
Moving on to suspensions. Arterial Morris suspended indefinitely at Kansas for some pretty heinous accusations, allegedly involved or committed a rape. So again, alleged, but coming off a misdemeanor plea deal for assault that happened a year ago at Texas. Really poor look for, I guess, Morris in general. And then Kansas suspending him indefinitely, not kicking him off the team yet, but have to assume he's not going to be a part of the roster, which again limits them down to a limited number of scholarship players. So don't want to just dwell on this, but Arterial Morris likely not going to be a Kansas Jayhawk contributor this year.
Mm-hmm.
Other random news and notes, Kai, very exciting stuff in the world of scheduling. Yeah. We could, and I think this is the likely case. I think Ken Pomeroy tweeted about this being the kickoff to the season. IUPUI hosting Spalding to open the year Monday, November 6th, 11 a.m. Eastern. Matthew, I believe you wrote our IUPUI preview. How pumped are you to see the Jags kick off the year?
Pumped, Mr. Crenshaw. We talked about how certain coaches had a categorically different tenor to their tone when we talked in last year and this year. And Crenshaw was in a rut last season, as he should have been. And this year he is over the moon excited, and you can see why. Has everyone coming back. And while IUPUI will still be a bad basketball team, they will be a much better basketball team. So yes, I am excited to see the upward trajectory of our Jaguars. Shout out to Naptown.
I wish it was against a D1 team. I wish
there
was
I know, right, exactly. Just play D1 team. I agree.
Yeah.
Not gonna be able to bet that.
But still
fun.
Yeah.
Markets.
But Kai, you can make all kinds of Spalding jokes from Caddyshack.
Yeah,
so there's at least that joy you can have too. Yes.
I loved Spalding basketballs growing up.
That's what we played with my high school too.
The Wilson Jet really stepped in, but we had Spaldings at Marquette, Matthew, I believe.
I prefer Wilson.
Great balls. Just great balls.
I now prefer Wilson, but it was the home
thicker,
ball,
a little heavier, a little sticky. I feel like it's a pure release off the fingertips. Big Wilson guy. Sorry, Spalding. Sorry.
All right, guys, that is it for the roundup. Let's get into the Pac-12 preview. That's what everybody's here for. They want to hear about Bronny James and UCLA and Arizona. Let's get into that. We're going to talk about the Pac-12 for the final time. Again, realignment wrecking the league next year. We're not going to dwell on that. We're talking 2023-24 only. That's all we care about, the pending season. Going to use Mr. Jeff Goodman's rankings and all conference awards from the Almanac. So if you own that, you can follow along and look those up. If you haven't bought it yet, what are you waiting for? Go do that. More detailed preview than what we can give you here. But to start off, let's talk all conference, and then we'll get into standings. Here's what Jeff put out there. Boogie Ellis, first team all conference, the only guard on the first team, and also the player of the year from the USC Trojans. And joining him,
The player who scares you most per other Pac-12 coaches.
Yeah, that's also true.
Wow.
For the anonymous poll conducted by the Almanac, Boogie Ellis, very terrifying.
Yes.
For opposing coaches.
Boogie Woogie.
Tristan Da Silva, Colorado forward, also on the first team, and then 3 centers: Brandon Carlson of Utah, Umar Ballo of Arizona, and Fali Dante of Oregon, getting healthier there after his knee injuries in the past. Second team, KJ Simpson from Colorado, Kylan Boswell from Arizona, voted the breakout player of the Pac-12 by coaches in the anonymous poll. Keon Brooks of Washington, Spencer Jones of Stanford, and Adem Bona, rising sophomore at UCLA, the somehow adult in their room with all kinds of foreign freshmen running around there. So, guys, reactions to the Pac-12 all-conference teams, anything you staunchly disagree with, or are these kind of just, solid picks? Kyle, I'll go to you first.
Solid picks, I suppose, Jim. I'm not the biggest. I'm surprised it's Kylan Boswell from Arizona. That's the second guy. I'd be shocked if he made a Pac-12 team over Caleb Love or even Jaden Bradley or even Pell Larson. Wow. I know he's breakout player, but that surprises me.
Kai telling the coaches, you don't know ball. That's
he can break out. Doesn't mean he's gonna be an all-conference guy though. Like if he's that, then Caleb Love has done a complete attitude adjustment, basically. Because if he's not the leading scorer, I'd be shocked.
Yeah, that's a valid point.
Yeah, I understand the Boswell love. Like, I think he was the youngest player in college basketball last season. Like, he has all of the upside to him. You watch him, he has the flashes. I do think he's going to be really good, but you're right. It is a pretty big projection to put him over a few other dudes. I'm just hyped, Jim, to see my boy Tristan Da Silva, who I was all in on last year. My chips remain in the middle on him after testing the NBA draft waters. As one of the 4 all-conference first teamers. In general, another league that's very forward tilted. Guard play is rather suspect throughout the league. I think that's why you'll see Pac-12 is always volatile, like, whoa, so-and-so beat so-and-so last night. Probably tied to some inconsistent guard play. I think you'll see that again this season.
No Collier on a team, the number 1 recruit in the country.
A little surprising. Also, no Caleb Love, who Jeff chose as the newcomer of the year in the conference. So that was a little bit surprising. A point for Kylan Boswell, Matt. You mentioned he is young. He was hurt in the preseason last year, and he was a reclass point guard, and he actually was good, which I think is really hard to do.
Yes,
like you combine all those factors. It took him a while to come along. He really picked it up in Pac-12 play versus non-conference, but I think that's where people were seeing the upside. He was better late in the year than he was early. I'm fairly on board the Boswell hype train. Yeah, I think there's a chance he could be first team, but the dumb thing is Pac-12 is a 10-team or a 10-player first team. So lame.
Boogie Ellis, player of the year, huh? Man, we live in this kind of world now, I suppose.
Yeah, Boogie bombs.
Just surprising.
Yeah, Boogie is really good, but I think your point stands, Kai. It's like my thought was the same as yours. Like, really, Boogie Ellis, player of the year? Like, okay, all right,
could be. That's the best player in this league.
Yeah,
I'm going Ballo. That's my player of the year.
Yeah, I think Ballo's a safer.
Yeah, high tempo team, plays through the paint. Really, really big opportunity for him to rack up stats. All right. Let's go with standings. This is what Jeff Goodman rolled out. We will talk through them in this order when we go team by team, but we're going to debate the order right now. He has Arizona first, USC second, Colorado third, UCLA fourth, and then Oregon fifth, who was voted the hardest team to prepare for by the Almanac coaches. Coming in at sixth, Washington, voted the sleeper team. And Kai, this is my moment to say, Pac-12 coaches, you don't know ball. I think here's my conspiracy theory on that is that they want Hopkins around forever. So they're just trying to this team is so good. Yeah. Oh, keep them. At 7, Utah, best developmental staff voted by the coaches. Wow, there's a little sent to Craig Smith there. Yep. Mm-hmm. And then Stanford 8, Cal 9, a little rivalry down there at the bottom half of the standings. Arizona State 10, Washington State 11th, Oregon State 12th. Matt, why does Jeff hate schools with state in the name?
I don't know. He's what's the difference between state and non-state? It's like they get money from the government. He hates governmental funding of institutions.
Okay, you're going to really turn this into
I'll get really serious about it. No, I actually kind of like Jeff's rankings. I do.
Huh. Really? You're going to allow Wazoo to be 11th and not say a word?
That's my only gripe, and we'll get there in a second. But that was, I think other than that, though, I actually don't. Like, I think Washington's too high. I actually think that could be kind of good this year, though, in spite of Mr. Hopkins.
I have quite a bit of disagreements with his rankings, actually, Matthew.
Me too, Kai. Let's hear your biggest one or two. What jumps out most?
Washington, I would have much lower. We'll just talk about them, but it's Mike Hopkins thing. Jeff picked them 6 last year, I think, too, and it's the same story. It's like it's not going to happen. I guess that was my major one. You're splitting hairs, but I wouldn't have Colorado 3. I'd have them lower. I'd have UCLA higher than 4. I'd have Oregon higher than 5. So it's splitting hairs things, but yeah, we'll talk about it in detail.
All right. Yeah. Before we belabor that too much, let's just go team by team. That is where we do our best analysis. We're going to hop in. I believe it's a clean sweep across the board in agreeing with Jeff that Arizona is the number 1 team, which I feel like has had some controversy this offseason, and maybe others see it differently. But to me, Kai, this is just a team geared towards regular season dominance. They play up tempo. They batter you with size inside. Ball is going to be a monster there. They got a little bit more versatile with Keyshawn Johnson. Maybe there's, skepticism on the way Caleb Love potentially submarines their chemistry. And, after last year, they lose in the first round to Princeton. Perhaps people are seeing some holes in the style, but to me, Kai, it just seems like such a dominant regular season squad with enough talent, and Tommy Lloyd has proven it in 2 years at Arizona. Yeah,
Lloyd rocks. Immediate bump for Tommy Lloyd. The question is, can he tame Caleb Love? Can Caleb Love coexist with Jaden Bradley in the backcourt? Is Boswell really going to start over both those guys? Jaden Bradley transferred for a reason, Matthew, and the Almanac has Boswell starting over him. If Bradley transferred to be a starting point guard, well, he's not apparently at Arizona, which I think would cause issues in the locker room. Just speculation from a third party guy. But the front court rocks. We know Ballo. The international flavor is strong on the roster. I think they're the clear favorite in the Pac-12. I don't think it's even close.
I would love to see Caleb Love come off the bench as like a super sub microwave guy. Like, Caleb's got it tonight. Let's ride the hot hand. Or Caleb doesn't. So we're going to bury you and play our awesome starting 5 of Boswell, Larson, Bradley, Keyshawn Johnson, and Ballo. And you need depth, obviously, with the way Lloyd plays. And there's so many possessions. I think Lloyd can pretty easily sell, hey, if you're a 6 man, you're still going to play a bazillion possessions, right? Just like he did at Alabama. So he'll have the counting stats there. I mean, Bradley still averaged 20 a game at Bama. I mean, he put up massive numbers.
Bradley did not average 20 a game at Bama.
What?
Sorry. Not even close.
20 minutes. I'm looking at minutes per game now. He barely played and still put up he'll put up big numbers, I think, at Arizona. No question.
I guess that's my point, though. He wants to play 30 minutes a game.
Okay.
That's why
I think he's locked into 20 plus, whether he starts or not. And you're right. Maybe if that's not enough, then maybe there's some locker room issues. I don't know. I kind of trust Lloyd to steal at that. And I think that they're going to play the right way and play enough possessions to keep everyone happy. The youth on the bench is my concern. I know it's talented. We'll talk about this with UCLA. A lot of unknowns, foreign prospects. Do they translate quickly? Have I watched enough YouTube film on them? Probably not. I'm sure there's a guy that'll respond to this podcast tweet with, you didn't even mention so-and-so's name and he did this in this tournament and is it going to be this? And I'm sure you're probably right, but the depth is my concern, Jim.
Yeah, well, I mean, they obliterated horrible competition in their foreign tour. So every guy put up like 12 points, 15 points, and 8 rebounds. So like every guy you could talk yourself into, like, oh, look, he's made the leap. We have 13 starters, et cetera, et cetera. I think some guys are going to get buried. I mean, last year they really only played like 7.
Yeah, it wasn't many last year.
It was not a deep rotation. They relied on their main guys. That's why I think that all 3 of those guards are going to play 30 minutes. Like, you've got 80 minutes for those 2 guard spots, 120 if you include Larson, 4 guys for 3 spots. I think they're going to play 30 minutes each. Boom. Not worried much about that. But KJ Lewis is probably going to get to play some. He's the freshman 4-star, the actual domestic freshman.
Texas, right?
Yeah, there you go. He's not from across the pond there. And then, I think Lloyd probably saw what happened in the last 2 tournaments and realized they need a little more postseason versatility. And that's why Keyshawn Johnson is there. You can play more in the half court. You're not too big. You're not playing 2 bigs, I guess, at the same time. He is big, but he's more athletic, versatile, malleable defensively. You're not kind of stuck with guys that can't guard in space and completely cramped in the shooting department. I think this team sets up a little better for a postseason run than some of the ones in the years past, but maybe it's not quite as dominant. I don't know if it's a 1 or a 2 seed coming into the NCAA tournament, but I think they're going to have more upside in the big dance. Matt, you agree?
3 seed is my over under. I think 3 seed.
I think it could be a 1 or 2. I think they roll through the Pac-12. I think they're like, what is it, 18 game schedule? They're 16-2.
Yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty in the Pac-12, and I think they probably pick on the the fragility of a lot of those other teams. I kind of agree with that. So maybe that kind of boosts them to the top 2 seed line, which they've won a 2 seed last 2 years, right? So
They were 1 seed.
1 seed 2 years ago when they went 18-2.
And then,
last year UCLA went 18-2. So a team has kind of run this league 2 straight years. I'll say 17-3 for them, Kai. That's what
I think that's a good mark. And if they did that, it'd be hard not to get a 2 seed, I think.
Yep, valid point. They're playing a fairly tough non-conference schedule as well, so a lot of tests. The quadrant numbers are going to look pretty strong. All right, that's Arizona. Our pick to win the league, consensus or unanimous rather. Let's go second team here, going in Jeff's order. USC, the Trojans. We commonly refer to Andy Enfield's coaching tenure as the Enfield zone, living between 45th and 55th in KenPom. He's only been above or below that once each way.
In 8 years.
Matt, in 8 years. Yep. Matt, I'm prepared to say that they're going to be above it this year. I think they will be better than 45th. Through. The guards are good enough. They got really strong defensive bigs, kind of a whole army of them up front. No Bronny James would make backcourt depth a real question. And I know Kyle probably harp on that. But Matt, I just think this team is more talented with Collier and Ellis, big time shot makers. Can they survive the loss of your boy, Drew Peterson?
I don't know. I did love DP, my guy DP.
I don't like that.
Top 5, top 5 punchable face in the game. He was a good player. USC fans know that. I just love what they have coming back. I look at this roster and I think that guy's underrated. Like Kobe Johnson is terrific on both ends. DJ Rodman, when healthy, was like a quasi alpha creator who can also play some wing or some forward there. Defends. Josh Morgan is an awesome rim protector. The Bronny James thing, like I think he's gotten too much hype, but I was pretty bought into him being an elite defensive player, which is, I think, going to be the MO of this team if they are going to be this good. We'll see how Enfield juggles the defensive schemes. I know he's done zone in the past, and we've bemoaned that, and he's played man. They've been much better. And then Iwuchukwu, I mean, if he's healthy, I mean, there's a ton of upside there. I mean, I thought his like high school tape was not like Evan Mobley jaw dropping, but pretty holy crap, this guy has that skill at that size and whatever. So there's a ton of like pockets of real upside. I think you put it all together and it's a top 20 team.
Yeah. The common man sees 20 plus wins in 7 of the past 8 years, 10 plus Pac-12 wins in 6 of the past 8. But as Jim said, the smart man, the betting man sees 6 of the past 8 years, 45 to 55. And the outliers were Evan Mobley's team and then number 82, despite having a lot of talent on that squad. There are a lot of good players in that team. So point is, I don't think Andy Enfield is fantastic. And Collier is not your typical number 1 prospect, as we've talked about. He's good. He's not game breaking. He's not Evan Mobley. This whole class is down. That's not just my opinion. That's most. But Jim, I agree. I would wager he breaks 45, but I don't know if that means second in the Pac-12. I don't know if that means top 25 even. Yeah, TBD.
Yeah, I kind of have him like fringe top 25. I don't have him quite top 20, not getting all the way into that range. Again, if I'm going to say Arizona's 17-3, it's probably hard to shovel a bunch of other Pac-12 teams into the top 25. A couple questions with me. Do they bring some zone back if Bronny can't play because they're going to be really thin at guard and you want to preserve those guys? That's my question there. And then also 353rd last year in rim and 3 rate. This team takes a ton of mid-range jumpers. Ellis is good at them. Collier could be good at them, but it's just kind of like a little bit of a cap on the offensive ceiling that I think they're going to run into a little bit this year. And the front court doesn't bring a lot of offensive ability. So that does concern me. To Matt's point on Kobe Johnson, Jeff's pick for defensive player of the year in the league. So high awesome. Praise for Kobe.
Yeah. 1 guard on the bench if Bronny's not healthy. Yikes.
And that's not like they're starting.
Who? I don't know who that guy is.
Ozias Sellers.
You're right. It's a thin bench.
Bronny's important. Great defensive player, hits shots, kind of like the perfect complementary piece. Not what people want him to be, but that game fits perfectly with what this roster needs. So it's the kind, not the hero that they deserve, but the hero they need. I don't know, whatever the
Something
saying
like
is.
that. Yes.
Okay, good. All right, next up, number 3. Kai said he would have them lower, and we're going to ask him why. Colorado. Yes. Tad Boyle's squad, Jeff's pick for coach of the year. Mr. Boyle is elevating the Buffaloes up into the top 3. That would be probably worthy of such an honor. Team returns a lot from last year. KJ Simpson, Tristan Da Silva, the 2 big scoring linchpins. And then you add Eddie Lampkin, as the dancing bear in the middle. Decent feet, big boy. And then Cody Williams is the huge ad, the freshman top 10. I think On3 rated him their number 1 recruit, which was kind of eye-popping to me.
Jeez, I don't see it.
Kind of versatility incarnate there.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Kai. It does not jump off number 1. I have a few beasts with this squad. I'm not going to totally dive into them yet, Kai. I will let you take it away first.
Yeah, I think Boyle in general does better without expectations. So I think having expectations is, first of all, a problem for him. 2 finishes ever in the top 40 of KenPom. It was 35 and it was 8. And you had McKinley Wright on the team, who was an All-American. 3 ever in the top 50. I just don't think Colorado has this level historically, right? 0 top 2 finishes in the Pac-12 under Boyle. They have talent. I like Simpson. De Silva's very good. Matthew, you love De Silva. And then Cody Williams, man, again, like this freshman class, he obviously has tools. He'll probably be an NBA player, but he's not he's not a game breaker right now. He's not going to lift this team to new heights this season, I don't think. Lampkin, Saab, the rest of the role players, I think, are just unproven. So I'd probably have him closer to 5th in the Pac-12. Not a bad team, tournament team, Matthew, but not elite.
Yeah, the role players are, because they lost Ruffin to injury. They lost Gabadon transfer, Ethan Wright transfer. So it's a really top heavy roster. And like the guys at the top are a little too volatile for me. Like I'm not a huge KJ Simpson guy. I know he put up big numbers last year because they played a little faster.
Agreed.
Flashes, but
Yes.
I'm not a KJ Simpson guy. The eye test just does not, I don't get the warm and fuzzies. And that's like the guy they need to kind of catalyze the offense. And then Eddie Lampkin, is he going to be healthy? I don't know. I mean, Tristan De Silva is like, I mean, I put more praise on that guy than anyone. And I'm still with Kai. I'm a little bit more sour on the Buffs. I have them closer to 4th or 5th, not 3rd, 5th.
Yeah, that's kind of where I land too. Like Simpson to me is a little bit of a chucker. I when I watch him, like, all right, he's really just launching, and I'd like to see things funneled a little bit more through De Silva. Lampkin's not really a go-to guy. You can't feed him, but I think Williams is the key to the ceiling. And as both these guys said, he's not like this big time game breaker yet. He's not like he's going to alter the face of your program. He's just skilled and long and versatile, but you're not going to hand him the ball and say, go get us a bucket. And that's going to end up being Simpson over and over again. And that's not really my idea of a top 3 in the Pac-12 offense. So defense is going to be really solid. They lose Lovering to intra-conference transfer over to Utah. Lampkin replaces him, maybe giving away a little bit in terms of rim protection and size at the bucket, but still a quality centerpiece there. I'm with these guys a little bit cooler versus the top 2, top 3. And I've even seen some people pick them to win the league, which I think is ludicrous. It won't happen.
Yeah, I don't understand.
Don't bet Colorado to win the Pac-12 in your markets.
I thought Colorado was scaring UCLA in that Pac-12 tournament game last year when Ethan Wright and Gabadon were probably their 2nd and 3rd best players behind De Silva, the game that KJ Simpson missed. Like, I like this version without KJ Simpson. Like, if last year was KJ Simpson's freshman year, okay, I give him a pass, but that was his 2nd year. And he just did the same thing he did the year before and kind of reaffirmed what I think he is. So, bummer.
Hey, he went from 24% from 3 to 28. Keep that up.
Okay.
32 would be acceptable.
I'd like to see 30. I'd like to see 30.
30 would be very, very acceptable compared to where he's been. All right, number 4, UCLA. Man, this team is tough to crack. It's tough to figure out. I think the talent is obvious, but it's young and it's international, and there's a lot of adapting to the college game that needs to be done. Adem Bona is kind of like the big, all right, we can look to him as the adult, to the veteran, but he's, he played a decent minutes load last year, but was hurt late. Wasn't a part of their like highest leverage games down the stretch. Dylan Andrews is going to be the point guard unless Jan Vide takes it, one of the foreign freshmen. Matt, you were very low on the squad in our top 40 voting, and you received some mean statements for doing so. Have you moved off that take at all? Where do you still land on the Bruins now that we've are at least a month out from that?
I think I've bought into the counter backlash that came at me when I sort of wrote them off for dead this offseason. It's deeper than I thought. It's young, it's youth depth, and it's international depth, which is even more young than I think typical young talent coming in plays. But just, I don't know, Mick Cronin with a roster of unknowns and new guys that haven't been groomed under his system. Like, he is a high demanding hard ass that, yeah, you coached a bunch of adults like Jalen Clark and Tiger Campbell and Jaime Jaquez, and Johnny Juzang. And then now it's just like this whole new group of dudes with one quasi veteran. Like, I just don't see how this goes well. I really don't. I think it's going to be, maybe it's good enough because Cronin's good enough and the talent's good enough to not be a disaster, but I don't see any way this is a top 20 team, top 25 team even. I don't.
Yeah, I go back and forth. There's a very low floor and a very high ceiling. You have to get production from the freshmen, obviously. Vita, Burka, Mara, Mac, and everyone's like, these are NBA players. They might be, but that doesn't mean they are this season. And I'm worried about that, but I do trust Mick Cronin. I do think Bona will be an all Pac-12 level player. He could be even pushing for all American level. That's his ceiling this season. Lots of questions. I just think the talent's undeniable. And I guess I trust Mick Cronin a little bit more than, say, an Andy Enfield or a Tad Boyle in the Pac-12.
Yeah, that's valid. The freshman I love the most is Mara, and he's like the highest in mock drafts. So that's not really like some big revelation or anything, but he's 7'3", so he's like inherently a dominant rim protector because he's not like a plodding goofus. He's actually kind of mobile. He's smart. He's an awesome passer offensively. Like that's the part of his game that could maybe make this work. Because if you play him with Bona, this team is going to have no spacing. Like you're going to be two guys in the paint pretty much at all times. I think that's going to be hard to deal with. So you have to unlock Mara as a passer. And I don't know how quick, like Kai said, Bike, Tunsil, and Vita are going to adapt to this style of play. I love Stefanovic. I think maybe he's like kind of sailing under the radar as we focus on all the freshmen. Nice role-playing wing from Utah that's played in this league, gives them some more veteran experience there. But yeah, it's like the fit of the roster. Is Dylan Andrews good enough at point? I know he was kind of solid in their 4 tour, but they were missing a bunch of these guys that weren't suiting up. So just wide range of outcomes that kind of settling in the middle. I'm not ready to be like super bullish on this team yet.
Yeah, maybe Cronin goes back to his old like Cincinnati roots where he used to play the Twin Towers and who was there? Like the Washington, and who was the other big guy? They had Gary Clark. Maybe he does that with Bona and
all the way back to like Jason Maxfield. Was that Bob Huggins or Cronin? I can't even remember.
Oh God,
it might have been Huggins.
Maybe it was Huggins. Maybe he does that. I don't know. I think that's the best gym. You're right. Like offensively, maybe not great, but defensively, you just kind of like, all right, we own the rim, and we'll see what else happens around it.
Yep, and that's kind of how I have this team rated, is like heavy defense. I think the defense is going to rock, and the offense is going to go through some sputtering droughts, which, like Matt said, harkens back to a lot of Cincinnati days for Cronin. All right, number 5, we're going to Oregon, who I also have at number 5. I'm a little cool on the Ducks. I've just kind of seen it a few times in a row with this semi-collection of players built around Dante and guards that can't really shoot. But Kai, I'll talk to you first here because there's one, I think, skeleton key that could unlock the team, but I don't know if he's going to get the minutes that he needs. What do you think of the Ducks this year? I feel like you're a little higher.
I am. I'd have him third in the Pac-12. That's right, above USC. It's a rough 2 years for Altman, but they were destroyed by injuries last year. They had no guards, literally none. They were all hurt, and obviously that affected them just a little bit last season. I think Bartholomew and Kusnard are pretty solid. I think Okendo is a great ad, and I think the skeleton key, Jim, maybe that you're referring to is Shellstad, who's going to be a stud. I don't know who does the rankings. This guy's underrated in terms of freshmen. Just watching him play, he's going to be legit for Oregon.
Because they factor in pro potential so much with those like recruiting rankings. It's like Hunter Dickinson was like 50th because like, okay, that guy's never going to be an NBA center, but Maddie Shellstad rocks.
Zarzuela's not a bad. It's just the point is the guard depth's deeper, Matt, and that's I think really, really important to go with a deep front court.
And it's healthy, we think. That was a big thing last year. Not ever healthy. They got key guys back late. Okay, I'm writing down Shellstad in my notepad here. Thank you for the update. Because they have like Rigsby coming off the bench like 4th or 5th. This actually could have some real depth, which has been, I think Altman needs that as a contingency against the injuries that seem to always bite him. The thing that's really bothered him the last few years is like the staff turnover has been pretty bad. He hasn't had like a consistent staff. I think someone for The Athletic wrote about that this summer. It just seems like everything's moving so fast, and Altman's just trying to keep pace with all that's changing. Even though he's been good at adapting to the portal lately, he hasn't been because I think the staff turnover has been too much, and just the fit of the guys he's brought in hasn't stuck with him. Where it did stick for a few years in the early part of his success in the portal, it hasn't the last few. I think for that reason, you're right, but they're probably an undervalued team that people are sleeping on.
I guess I'm snoozing a little bit.
You're still saying
Cousinard and Okendo are both like, I'm a bowling ball that wants to get to the rim, and Nafali Dante is going to be standing there. Nathan Biddle's going to be standing there. Maybe Kwame Evans is going to be in there waiting for him.
Hey,
I think there's going to be what?
Biddle can shoot
A little bit. He's not like
He's
lighted up, close out to him at 27 feet kind of thing. I just think there's going to be spacing issues. I think Shellstad needs to play a lot more, move Bartholomew off the ball. Don't rely on him to be your primary point guard. Obviously, he wasn't last year with Richardson. So I hope Shellstad gets the keys to the car from day one. I don't think Zarzuela is a Pac-12 player, especially defensively. I don't know. I just kind of feels like this is going to be a little bit disjointed and not the Dana Altman that we've seen in the past. And that's kind of been the last couple of years, obviously derailed by injuries. There's a chance that Kai, maybe this is like the year of, Larinaga had those 2 injured years and then suddenly they took off. Like maybe Oregon has that coming their way. The talent's there at least.
Addition by subtraction, Will Richardson and Quincy Guerrier.
I mean,
I don't think either one really contributed to winning. Will Richardson was such disappointment.
Yeah, he was. He never had any like dynamism, any shake to him. Just
never got better. Like,
got better. Right.
Yeah, unfortunately. I still, I don't know. The wing guys need to sort out their rotation and kind of accept roles. Feature the bigs, feature Shellstad. I think that's the best outcome.
Yeah, heavy Dante doses, and then kind with Kai. Biddle's good. Biddle's actually a good player. To give him a little time.
Unleash him.
All right, next up, Washington. Again, the sleeper team as chosen by the coaches anonymously surveyed for the Almanac. Guys, I don't have Washington 6th. I have them 11th.
So do
or
I.
Possibly 10th. So, yeah. Matt, tell us why we're crazy. Why should this team be in the middle of the standings? What are we missing?
I have them 9th. I guess I have them pretty close. I kind of have them in the Arizona State Cal bunch, just a little better, just a little more proven roster to me. Man, am I really going to argue for Washington here? This is a terrible.
What have they proven? Have they proven that they're not a top 100 team?
They have not.
That's what they showed last year.
I mean, I like Mulcahy, but then I read that he's like not getting along with the team. Like the whole NIL thing actually rubbed the team the wrong way. There's some chemistry issues there. So don't love that, obviously. I love Moses Wood. I actually love Braxton Mia. I think he's like the most underrated big guy in this conference. Another one of those Fresno defectors who's like just awesome because he got stuck behind Orlando Robinson. Speaking of fellow Fresno member, Holland Jam, your boy from Fresno. There's some depth here. I actually kind of like the depth.
I love Holland, but the roster update sent by Washington coaches for the Almanac put him like 5th on the bench. Like, really, we're going to bury Holland and play more big guys. I don't know. I'm kind of with you on Mia, but now Kepnong's back. Like, do they just split 2020 on minutes? Like, I don't think that works. Kai, I guess give the negative view on Washington.
First of all, I think the roster with a different coach is a tournament team. But
right,
why would you trust Mike Hopkins? He's exceeded his preseason KenPom rank basically once, and that was his first year. Since then, it's been right around there or a little bit lower, and 3 straight seasons outside of the top 100. And it's not like they didn't have talent the last 3 years. They definitely did. Wheeler, say what you will, he was a first-team All-SEC player. I know they had 10 guys in that team 2 years ago, but he was. Okay, he's good. Wood was really good for Portland. Brooks is a stud. Depth is strong.
There's some shooting. There's some offensive skill this year. Can I add that in real quick as Kai says the names? A little bit of that. I like.
Not if you're playing Wheeler and Mulcahy together. There's not shooting.
I guess I'm looking at Wood and
both shot well
last
year.
They did shoot pretty well last year.
Yeah, but they made like 12 threes.
Not
each.
high volume though.
Hey, Nate Calmisi, the Lamar dude. I guess actually a good player. I don't know if he's a Pac-12 player, but he's kind
Southland freshman of the year. I think what he was.
Yeah, he's like.
Anyways, I don't trust Hopkins. That's the summary of this team.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking the talent that they've had. Hopkins has yet to have a top 100 offense per KenPom, and last year was his worst offense somehow, despite Keon Brooks coming in and being super productive. His adjusted offensive efficiency ranks 140th, 110th, 112th in the last 3 years, 135th, 158th, 165th. I'm positive that this offense is going to be like 125th. And the defense, hey, it cracked the top 100 last year, but it's because no one made a 3 against them. They had like an anomaly. Yeah, right. Like no one made 3s, top 15 3-point percentage defense. I don't think that's going to really continue, especially if you have a 5'9" guy and Wheeler at the top of your zone. Yes, they're lengthy elsewhere, but man, I don't get excited. I don't think they're going to maximize skill sets offensively, even if there is some. It's just not a great team.
It's identity crisis.
He couldn't even crack like the top 50 with like 5 pros. his first 3 years.
Oh yeah, because they had McDaniels and they
Bible,
had
McDaniel, B. Stewart.
Isaiah Stewart was a beast.
Noel,
Wright and Bay are like
Dickerson,
long,
I'm pretty sure was an
freakish
NBA guy for a
defenders.
bit.
Yeah,
It's insane.
Great Clown Battle. Yeah.
It's just it doesn't max, like the way they run offense does not maximize shot selection at all. I think this team is not going to perform it to its talent level, and that's kind of the consensus across the board here. All right, next up, Utah. Hey, the best developmental staff. We can say nicer things about a coaching staff here. Utah might be limited by offense too, though. Kai, I'm gonna just own up to that. As much as I like this roster and think they can be thoroughly dominant at the rim defensively, with Carlson, with Lovering coming over from like a top 50 defense at Colorado, the guard creation is still shaky, especially if Davon Smith does not get a waiver as we anticipate.
Yeah, Craig Smith is great, but again, the roster still isn't there quite yet, I don't think, for Utah. I think the defense can be near elite level. It was almost there last season. I love Carlson. The backcourt's very old. There's a lot of depth up front. I think Bajima is a pretty good addition too, just kind of on the wing. I feel like kind of fills a need, a position they really lacked. It just needs talent still, Matt. So I'd actually have him 7th also, where Jeff has him. That's mostly Craig Smith and a belief in the defense.
I like this team. I like Utah every year, and I'm going to buy into it again. I love Riley Worcester and Gabe Madsen. Please stay healthy, both of you, because I think the depth behind them, as you guys allude to, if Davion Smith is not greenlit, is very concerning. Carlson's awesome. I did read that he's coming back mostly because of his wife being still in grad school, which didn't give me like the warm and fuzzies. Like he's not coming. Like he's going to go pro. Probably should have gone pro, honestly. Like he's good enough to go pro, go play somewhere. It didn't exude a ton of like, let's all come back and have a monumental year this year, fellas, type thing. I still like Craig Smith too much. I think it's a good team.
Fair enough. Yeah, I just, the offense I think is limited. Matt, to your point, down the stretch last year when Madsen got hurt and then Worcester missed 2 games, like they went 2-6 without Madsen.
Yeah, they tanked.
Lost their last 2 without him as well. This team was 15-8, 8-3 in the Pac-12 with a win over Arizona. It was like, that's definitely a tournament team. And then wheels fell off, especially with Madsen out, lost offensive spacing and schedule stiffened up a little bit back end for them in the Pac-12. But yeah, it's just, I think the offensive ceiling is a little bit low without somebody that can get into the lane the way Smith can. And Worcester's been really solid at point guard, averaged 5 assists a game, almost a 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, but he's just not quite as dynamic as somebody that would be speedy and kind of draw more help defensively.
I think Worcester is perfect if Carlson can be more of like an offensive hub, the way like they used Keita that awesome year at Utah State, where he became a really good passer and they played inside out through him. And then you just needed really like a complimentary guy on the perimeter. You don't need like a game breaking, break you down guy. That's what I think the ultimate version of this team that works and healthy.
That's how I wanted it to be last year. And now it sounds like they're going to play Lovering with Carlson, which then kind of takes away that spacing option, because where's Lovering going to be if Carlson's on the block? So kind of a TBD fit thing there. But like Kai said, it's hard to envision this defense not being awesome, especially at the rim.
You know, Carlson attempted over 123s last year. The guy,
he can kind of be the spacing.
Look out.
That's why you can maybe play them together. Yeah, it's nuts. All right, next up in the order here, we're going to number 8, Stanford. Kai, you said this about Washington. This is a tournament team if you change 100%. The coach. Like this, I love this.
This is a top 25 team if you change the coach. Really good team.
I kind of buy it.
If Mark Madsen was here instead of Cal, top 25 team, and I'm buying futures on him. I think getting Jared Bynum to replace O'Connell at the point is enormous.
Massive upgrade.
Spencer Jones is an all Pac-12 player. Michael Jones is great. Angels, solid. Renow. Maxime Renaud, whatever you pronounce it. He's got a ton of upside. Just seeing him in person against Marquette, guys, actually, he can play. I just think Haas needs to be drop kicked out of the chair, Matthew, if he misses the dance again. He's never made it in 7 seasons at Stanford, and they've had good recruits, right? Oh, also, they have Peja's kid and Carlisle, the new point guard freshman. He's electric. They should be really good. It just depends on Haas.
His best year, Haas, 2020, this was the COVID condensed year. They had Tyrell Terry, freshman phenom point guard. They have not had a point guard basically except that year. Like he's basically tried to do the Michael O'Connell experiment, didn't work out. Did the who was the guy we hated? Davis, turn it over every possession, didn't work. So when they have a point guard who can like be an adult in the room and not kick it in the stands and do the right thing and get people involved, which I think Jared Bynum is that guy, knock on wood that he's healthy. I mean, this team could be really, really good. And we can say all we want about Haas, but like if Bynum sticks, I think this team could be, this is the right sleeper team in the conference if I were a coach voting, because he's that important to this team.
Maybe, but like even that Terry team didn't finish above 500 in the Pac-12 with him and Oscar da Silva.
Yeah, that's weird. This should have been.
Pretty
I guess he got hurt,
roster.
didn't he? Maybe I don't know.
He's had Zaire Williams. He's had a lot of NBA guys too.
Harrison Ingram. Yeah, I mean, last 3 years, picked 5th in the preseason poll, finished 10th. Picked 9th, finished 9th. Picked 4th, finished tied 6th, and like 8th in Ken Palm rating that year. It just hasn't been a season or a tenure of maximizing the talent there. And I know during COVID, they had like the weird thing where they couldn't be on campus and stuff. So like, all right, we gave them a pass for that. But then last year, that team is not the 10th best team in the Pac-12. So something is majorly wrong that they finished that far down. Swapping out the point guard is great. And again, I do like the roster. I think the talent fits, their shooting, their size, there's defense. But I just want to see it actually perform altogether consistently for multiple months before suddenly getting excited about the Stanford Cardinal. Matt, I'm not falling for it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I probably will. God dang it. Come on, Jared Bynum, stay healthy, please.
All right, to Cal, the rival that did hire Mark Madsen instead of the alma mater at Stanford.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm getting over ambitious here, Matthew, but I look at Jalen Cone, Jalen Tyson, Keontae Kennedy, Fardaws Aimaq, and I'm like, that's a top 75 team when coached by Mark Madsen. So I think the floor's relatively stable. It's just whether there's enough depth around that quadrumvirate, whether there's enough around there to actually build Cal up into a tournament team. What do you think?
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I think they are going to be an NIT team. I think that would be a pretty fair projection just because the coaching upgrade is absolutely monstrous. And I don't think Mark Fox is like a terrible coach. I just think Madsen's that good. I looked at my ratings the last 3 years. No coach has beaten my rating on average more the last few years than Madsen. He laughs at my projection every year. It's insane. I mean, he was like a fringe top 50 team last year. And this roster on paper has more talent than that at a better, like just from that logic alone, this could be a tournament team. I worry about some of the health concerns with the guys they brought in. I think he took some undervalued swings at guys with major injury question marks.
Who's that besides Aimaq?
Doesn't Tyson have injury question marks? I thought Kennedy missed time last year. Celestine.
Well,
no.
He didn't bring him in. He didn't bring
I don't think Tyson.
Celestine's healthy, apparently.
That's fair. By the way. Is he healthy? Okay.
Apparently,
I think there are some injury risks here for a team that doesn't have a ton of depth and experience. That's my only concern. But again, you're nitpicking. It's freaking Cal. This is going to be a great breakthrough year relative to what you've dealt with the last decade, basically.
Yeah, I took the super long shot flyer on the future. Why not? I think Madsen's superb. I agree. Cone can definitely play at this level. He was a top 100 recruit at Virginia Tech. He can play at this level. I think Kennedy and Tyson are really good gets in the transfer portal. And Aimaq changed Texas Tech when he played for that team. They got so much better when he actually entered the lineup. So it's deeper than last year. Obviously, it's more talented, obviously, than last year. And like Matt said, a massive, massive coaching upgrade. They could surprise. I think this is a sleeper team. This is the answer for sleeper team.
Yeah, this is who I'd go with. I'd have Aimaq as like second team all conference, competing for defensive player of the year in this conference. Like he's a beast inside. Last year it just didn't really pan out. You missed that much time with the foot injury. You come back a little bit hampered, and he still averaged 11 and 8 in the Big 12. Like he's going to be a monster for them in the paint. He has familiarity with Madsen, having played for him at Utah Valley. Yeah, I just don't want to see too much Devin Askew. That's my big worry with this team.
Leave. Why didn't he leave?
Hey, he's a bench player though. He's coming off the bench.
I hope that
Devin
remains
Devin
the
has
case.
really, direct quote, Devin has really impressed me with his basketball IQ. That's all Madsen said.
Yeah, because his IQ is I shouldn't have the ball. Hopefully that's
he's old. He's old now. Maybe he's like mature and like grizzled.
He averaged 15 a game last year. I didn't realize that. Obviously, the epitome of empty calorie stats. But
yeah, the team went 3-29. Matthew, I think they might have won like 2 of those games when he wasn't on the court. All right. Next up after Cal, Arizona State. Matt, I'm going to kick this one to you. And before I do, I'm going to ask you, why did they like filter their portal stuff for guys that lost a lot?
Yeah, exclusively losers.
Louisville transfer, 2-18 in the ACC. 2 guys from LSU, 2-16 in the SEC. 1 guy from Tulsa, 1-17 in the American. Houston Christians, they were 7-11 in the Southland. They actually won 7 league games. And then San Francisco, Zane Meeks, 7-9 in the league. Not a single one of their transfers was on a top 100 team last year. 3 of them were outside the top 300. I don't understand what's going on here, Matthew. Why is this a Pac-12 roster?
I think you did the math on this, Jim. 21 and 87 was the combined record of the incoming transfers.
For their conference records.
The conference
and
records.
14 of those wins are from Meeks and a Houston Christian guy.
You're right. They just kind of lost the identity of what they had last year, which was defense. And Hurley teased that going into last season. I think we sort of bought in like, okay, I like what Hurley's doing. He's tired of just being a one-sided offense-only guard you type thing. Dug into defense. That was their calling card. Got him back to the tournament right in the Bobby Hurley bubble zone. But they just lost all of that identity with a bunch of who the heck knows empty calorie stat producers. Frankie Collins, I like Kai. I like Alonzo Gaffney, sure. But man, we're reaching for straws here. This is a bottom 5 for sure, bottom 4 team in this league.
Yeah, much less inspired by this group. It's also really hard to see them being elite on defense again, which is what really lifted them last year. Losing Washington and both Cambridges is huge. They lifted this entire team up. And Jim said, yeah, you bring in losers from the transfer portal. That's not a good recipe for success. I like Collins. He has upside. I think Neal has upside too. I just don't expect much from this team, frankly.
Yeah, I had one coach over the offseason say, like, we brought in guys from losing programs because they're going to be desperate to do anything to win. Like, they'll sacrifice more. And like, that's a fun spin zone, I think. But when you have 7 of them that have no winning habits coming from teams that were like truly terrible, like LSU, Tulsa, and Louisville were like all-time bad. Like, that's just not going to get me super excited to go with the Collins, Neal, Gaffney group. I don't anticipate Adam Miller will be eligible. 2-time transfer, going to need a waiver. I can't imagine he'll be out there. So I guess maybe he's not dragging them down. I don't know. He's one that could actually boost the ceiling for me. And then maybe you get something from Malachi/Malachi Davis, the high-ranking JUCO prospect. I just don't love it. I think this team could really bottom out, and either that's the only reason I'm debating Washington 11th, Kai, is because I think this roster has such disaster potential.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, 11th, Washington State. Going to go to Matt first again here because he is Kyle Smith's data raid biggest believer. I just don't get super excited about this roster, Matt. I know that like they're trying to bring in undervalued talent, and I think maybe Yesufu and Wells can qualify there, but they just got hurt this offseason, losing guys they didn't think they were going to lose in terms of Justin Powell, especially. So how do they replenish? Do you think that Kyle Smith can get them back into middle of the conference and maybe even at-large contention?
Yeah, I'm always so excited to hype up Kyle Smith, and I think he's done a really good job there. He's been a victim of losing a lot of close games, which you could argue is that coaching or is that just kind of bad luck. Injuries have played a part in that. It's kind of like with the Arizona State thing. They lost a lot of their identity, right? They don't have like the big towering, imposing Baron up front, which has kind of been the bedrock of why they've been at least competent, solid, while they've had some really questionable guard shakiness. This year, I actually like the backcourt. I think Yesufu is going to be really solid and kind of a new change of scenery. I love Mullins when he's healthy. Yakisimov is great. Yakimovsky. Yeah, wing can shoot. Burley. Isaac Jones, I know he's coming from the Big Sky. Different league in the Pac-12, but I think he's like legitimately awesome. And I think he can play in this league for sure.
Smith said he's a pro. Like, I mean, you know, of course he's going to pump his player up, but I kind of do too. It matches the eye test.
Yeah.
And we always like to caveat conference context when transfer. I think he's an exception to that rule. The depth concerns me with all the injury luck they've had. Like, who are their, Dylan Darling's a guy I like off the bench, kind of a spark plug. He didn't play a ton last year. I know he was hurt. So there's pieces here. It just seems a little disjointed, and I think Kyle Smith will be competitive, keep this team in like NIT territory. I just don't think they get enough consistency to move over the top with the guys they lost, Kai.
Yeah, unfortunately,
they lost a lot.
It's like Craig Smith. It lacks talent. We love the coach, but it just lacks talent. They're gutted in the offseason. Yeah, Yakimovsky and Mullins are the only guys back pretty much. I agree with Yesufu angle. He never got a shot at Kansas, but we know how good he was at Drake. And the fact that he could play for Kansas is certainly a feather in his cap, I would say. Jalen Wells, D2 All-American. The D2 All-Americans, I think, can really boost programs and play at this level for sure. The level is not that different when you're talking about that elite caliber of player. And then, yeah, I agree with Jones. The question is I guess they're going to play Jones at the 4, according to Kyle Smith in the Almanac. So is Clough, who's a JUCO guy, played pretty well in JUCO, is he going to be really good? Or is the freshman Chinyelu, 6'11", super long, going to be good? Yeah. Unfortunately, there's a lot of question marks. They're really young and experienced.
Yeah, I think they talked about Diange last year, and he like couldn't sniff the court.
Yeah.
And like they were going to play him with Gay up front and be huge, and they couldn't do it because he wasn't good enough. And I'm not sure that Chinyelu is going to be that. The Almanac preview also reads really heavy on Miles Rice, who has been out with like actual medical issues.
Big recruit, right? When he came in,
solid recruit,
didn't he?
But yeah, like not an injury. Like he's been away from basketball, like Kai said, battling cancer. So I hope he succeeds beyond wildest dreams, but like that's a tough thing to be banking a lot of your season on. Like Matt, it even reads like they might try to play him more point and Yesufu off the ball a little bit. I'm concerned about putting that much stock in a guy that has a lot of uncertainties to it, and the depth in the backcourt just isn't really there. So I think the floor is high enough because Smith is a very solid coach, and they've got some big wing types with Mullins, Yakumovsky, Jones, Wells. They'll be solid and kind of a pain to play against, especially in Pullman. But man, I just don't really see a high ceiling for this team. Last, but definitely not least, the Beavs, the Beavers, Oregon State, Washington State, and Oregon State, the two remnants of the Pac-12 here, sitting at the bottom of Jeff's preseason projections. Kai, Oregon State seems to be kind of on the right trend, at least. Like play a bunch of freshmen last year, keep them around, let them develop. This is that sophomore year where maybe you take a little step, and then hopefully next year and the year following is when you actually have good seasons with these guys if you keep them around. What should the expectation be this year? How do you view Oregon State? I mean, I think we all have them 12.
Yeah, poor Tinkle. At least they have continuity. They did lose Glenn Taylor, but Pope is a stud. I think we all agree with that. Even in person, I thought he was really, really good. I bet Tinkle wins a few games, mucking it up on the defensive end as he's wont to do, Matthew. But this is still by far the worst team in the league.
Okay. I have them rated as the worst team in the league. I would like to board bet they don't finish last because I think there is so much downside with Washington and Arizona State that
I'll take that.
Okay.
They're like 50 spots below the 11th place team in this league.
Okay. You're probably right. Again, I have them rated a good, a couple notches below those two, but I think the floor is really low on those other two teams. And I like my Beavs, man. Just the continuity, Jordan Pope, like the sophomores coming in. They have to be good this year, though. They have to be good because if they can't build and keep the guys for next year, which I think really is going to be the breakthrough season, then it feels like you have that frustrating reset of like, okay, what are we doing here? We're like the gerbil and the hamster in the wheel running in place. But Pope's really good. I think Pope's a pro. I really do.
Gerbil's on wheels too, to be fair. Yeah. Gerbil's pants both on wheels. Yeah.
I don't think they have to be good this year. I think they could finish 12th and still be pretty encouraged. Like, all right,
they need to have
moments. Got better.
Like a couple big home wins. Like, yeah, they need some of that this year.
Like, I think you can get encouraging signs from those guys, bring them all back as juniors and still feel like, all right, we can get up to like 8th this year. And then when they're seniors, maybe 6th or something. Like, I still think it's not like a death wish if you're finishing 12th again with a whole bunch of sophomores, because that's kind of what they're going to rely on again. And 3 freshmen. Like, they didn't bring a single guy out of the transfer portal. I mean, maybe Christian Wright is worth highlighting. He was the big offseason addition last year and like got hurt and made less than 20% of his shots. It was like truly abominable when he was on the court. But I think they're hoping for a lot more from him, give a little bit more of a kind of veteran stability, at least. I mean, he's not super experienced even relative to the other freshmen, but a guy that played in the SEC and has some talent for sure.
Yeah, just to make Pope's life easier. I mean, Pope just did so much with this team last year. They need to make his life easier.
Yep, I would agree. Bilodeau is the other probably highest upside of those sophomore guys. The big man kind of goes inside and out, gives them that inverted floor look. All right, guys, the question now we get to: how many teams make the tournament? I saw early in the chat on YouTube that was kind of brought up. Are they even going to get 5 teams? I'm going to holster my answer. Kyle, go to you first.
Yeah, I was kind of trying to look back. So 2021, they had 5 teams. Okay. 2020, they would have had 6. That was like the best year the Pac-12's had. Outside of that, it's been pretty bleak for the Pac-12 in recent history. I think they get 5 though this season. I'm saying 5. I think Arizona's a lock. I think USC gets there. UCLA, Colorado, Oregon would be my picks, but I can see Stanford or maybe Utah crashing that as well.
I spy 7 teams that can't. 6. I'll go 8. Sorry, I think 8 teams.
Cal could get there.
Yeah. Right. I'll give 18, maybe 9 if Mike Cal's. Now it's probably just 8. I think 4, Jim. Arizona, USC, Oregon, and I think UCLA. Although that'll be my bold prediction when we do. I think UCLA is going to be
not
right
a tournament team.
I think they're hanging by a thread. I think they get there. I'll go 4, but man, I don't think it's going to be a surefire top 6 seed, top 7 seed. No, I don't.
So you have UCLA in your 4.
My 4.
So do you have Oregon out? USC
Oregon's
out?
in. So Arizona, USC, Oregon, UCLA, Stanford, no. Colorado,
no. Interesting. That's almost not maybe as bold as UCLA, but it's fairly bold.
Yeah, that's true. I guess people love Colorado. I'm like sort of aloof to like the Colorado love out there, but yeah, sorry, Boyle.
Yeah.
I don't understand the top 15 love that I've seen from Colorado.
Enjoy football season. Who cares about basketball season? The gridiron's amazing. Just enjoy that. That's awesome.
The bravado has got their fans puffing their chests a little bit. I'm going with 4 as well. I think there's, like Matt said, some downsides with some of the teams. And I think a lot of them we talked about are very one side of the ball heavy. Like I think UCLA's defense is going to be way better. Oregon, I think the offense might struggle a little bit. And then Utah has got offensive problems. I don't think Stanford and Washington get there with their coaching situation. So I'm going to end up with 4. I have Oregon on the outside looking in. I'll let I'll let Colorado sneak in, but that's where I land. 4 teams for me as well. That's it, boys. Do you want to say any sort of words over the Pac-12's, I guess, gravestone here? I don't know. What do you think?
Pour one out. The Mountain West and Pac-12 are discussing a relegation system.
I love that.
I want it so badly.
I don't know how that works. That's probably more of a football thing because basketball, you don't need to do that. We'll see. Yeah. Shame. I hate realignment. Boo.
I'm rooting for Washington State and Oregon State to have just unbounded success the next couple of years, just to sort of stick it to the rest of the league for, doing them dirty, but whatever. It's not like it's their fault. It's just,
I would enjoy that. I did see somebody that was like, if they can get the league big enough to do relegation promotion, would they make it 2 conferences and get 2 automatic bids? Like, would the team, like the lower relegation group still get on an auto bid? Like, would you rather be the champion of the small pond than getting promoted?
Yeah. I don't know.
No, it's kind of, there's a lot of logistics to work out there. The Pac-12 basically just said, the Mountain West and the Pac-2 were like, we have to think outside the box. And yes, you do. I'm interested to see what other outside the box ideas you come up with. But that's it. That's it for the Pac-12. We will do a postmortem at the end of the year, like we always do in the offseason, kind of a look back on our preview. So we're not done talking about the Pac-12, but this will be the last preseason preview. So RIP Pac-12. Sad to see you go. That's it. Next week, we have not decided what league is coming. So TBD on that. Stay tuned, stay posted. Go out, buy the almanac. It's out today, $19.99. We appreciate if you're able to do that. But that's it. Tune in next week. Until then, see ya.